Tyler walking in the streets. The Empire State Building right here. They got weed.
Hold on, wait.
I bet those guys got weed. Kids doing scooters. It's President's Day. All the kids are happy because they didn't have school today.
Yeah, look, it's art. Is that an art shot?
I'm open. Come on in. Welcome to Gallery Opportunity. You ever heard of Robert Johnson?
Robert Johnson.
He's a Delta blues man, and they say he sold his soul to the devil. Went down to the crossroads. Well, he's called the king of king of the Delta blues, is what they call him. And these are the only two pictures that they've had up for a long time. And then his stepsister wrote a book, and she published it, and it came out with this picture. She had it in her Bible.
Brother Robert.
Oh, wow.
Now look, that picture and this picture are taken seconds apart down here on Bill Street. He's 19 in both of these pictures.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Different angle. Whose guitar?
That's mine.
Is it?
That's mine.
What do they call that? Telecaster or Stratocaster?
It's a Stratocaster. That's as far as my hands don't stretch. Robert Johnson's fingers were long. Hands were big. He can run up and down his guitar. He stretched those notes better than anybody. That's the one thing he brought to the Delta Blues. The next thing he brought to the Delta Blues is that he took piano lessons. And he transposed what he knew about the piano onto the neck of the guitar. And he was playing the black notes and the white notes. And so to the people who were listening, it sounded like two people playing one guitar. And so, they were superstitious.
That's why they kind of made that story about him. Wow.
And the fact that when he first was introduced to the Delta, bluesmen down in the Mississippi Delta, he was playing what he played here in Memphis on Bill Street. That wasn't the Delta Blues. So they called him trash. He studied the Delta Blues for 2.5 years and came back and was playing circles around everybody. That's what prompted Son House to say, boy, you went down to the crossroads and learned how to play like that. Son House was known to kind of stretch a story, or at least give you one. And Robert never said anything about himself, making a deal with the devil or anything like that. But the storyline was something that a guy named Tommy Johnson used to say about himself. Robert died at 27 years old. He was the first one in the 27
The
Club.
27 Club, yeah.
Yeah. With him not being here to tell his story, other people told his story and it became legend. You had these guys coming over from England who worshiped at the Temple of the Blues. Eric Clapton, Rolling Stones, all of those guys, the Beatles, they come to America looking for the legend. Of course, they find old men who haven't really panned out in their careers, and they're asking, did you know Robert? And he's like, yeah, I knew Robert. Did he really sell his soul to the devil? I can show you where he did it. Just to be put on.
Yeah.
And so the legend reignites, and then you have another generation of this foolishness about, the Crossroads legend, I started reading all this information and gathering all this information about Robert and how he was rejected down at Doctor's Farm and how he had lost a wife and child in childbirth, and his ultimate turn away from the church because of the losing of his wife in childbirth. I found out that he was poisoned and it took him 3 days to die. And so I was kicking ideas toward my wife. And I said, what if at the end of his life, as he's laying there dying for 3 days, he goes back over his life in spirit. And he's revisiting all of these traumatic events. Maybe it's the trauma that he's caused somebody, the trauma that was caused to him, decisions that he's made, relationships, things like that. And I take his spirit on this healing journey, and ultimately in the end he goes up the steps to the upper room. And she's like, that's a pretty dope idea. And that's what I started doing. I started trying to find the different things in his life that could illustrate that. So like I said, he was turned away from Doctor's Farm because they said he couldn't play, which he could play, but he just wasn't playing what they wanted to hear. This is when he was around 15, 16 years old. By the time he saw Son House again, he had been married and lost a child. And by that time, he was a bona fide blues man because he had studied under a guy named Ike Zimmerman. So I tell the story here about him losing his wife and child. And that's his wife and child on the other time side of life, beckoning him to come on over. If he turns away from the church here, physically he's turned away from the church, turning back on the church. And, he's known to be very disrespectful toward the church as a blues man. He's in a juke joint and he's in there cursing God and blaspheming. People at the juke joint say this, you know, I'm getting out of here. This kind of illustrates his bitterness towards, you know, God and especially church folks who told him it was his fault that his wife and child died. After that, they said he was a very different young man. So he goes on with the Rambling on My Mind and All My Love in Vain, where the narrative is he's visiting or attempting to visit the home of a young lady who he's dealing with in life, and he really can't. And he's remembering the pain in that relationship. Here again, he's visiting another woman. I have pains in my heart, which turns him to looking for some of the good in his life. And that's when he starts to remember Ike Zimmerman. So when you have a good, this is when you got a good friend. Ike Zimmerman took Robert under his wing as a young man, and they used to practice blues licks in a cemetery, which which kind of added to the mystique and the darkness of Robert's journey. After remembering Ike Zimmerman here, he's come to the point where he says these worried blues ain't so bad. And so this is him kind of looking at the sun going down or the sun going up, whichever you want.
Yeah. I think the sun's coming up for him.
Okay, that's what.
He's been walking all night.
Yeah, he's been walking all night. Yeah, he's remembering the good times. And as he's remembering the good times, he starts his way back to Memphis because he spent quite a bit of his time in Memphis as a young man. As a matter of fact, he's considered to be a city boy who found the blues down in the Delta in Mississippi. He goes back to this home over here on East Georgia Avenue. This house is still standing up. Like in Sweet Home, Chicago, this is Sweet Home, Memphis. So the name of this is All I Had Is Gone, Sweet Home. And so he's still on this journey. He's traveling from Memphis to Louisiana to Mississippi, between Mississippi and Arkansas, and then back to Memphis.
I like that one. The bottom.
The bottom, that's called Traveling Riverside Blues, which really wasn't about the Mississippi, it was about Helena, Arkansas. That's where he wrote that song. And this one, I purposely made him a silhouette, and the name of that is Back to That Same Old Place. You don't know whether he's going towards Arkansas or coming back towards Mississippi. And I did that because he spent much of his time in Helena, Arkansas, and much of his time in the Mississippi Delta. Today they have this friendly rivalry of who Robert belongs to. I just left it up to the viewer.
Yeah, that's nice.
To tell when he's coming back. And not too many people know that Robert played the harmonica.
Is that what he's doing?
Yeah, he's
looks like he was calling to it a little
bit.
bit.
He's making the sound of the train. This is a Milk Cow Blues as part of the collection, the Robert Johnson collection.
Oh, is that the original right
That's
there?
the original up there. I envisioned Robert's soul visiting two women that he was living with in life, but that's a bull. And I got the notion from Milk Cow Blues where he likens a woman to a cow. The bull is telling him, you know, you're no longer, your services are no longer needed. I got it from here. Seemingly dejected. His soul
Sulking a little bit.
dejected. And he's, you know, the bull has placed himself in between Robert and the women.
He's looking over the bull, kind of.
He's like, man. So That is his time, his signal to, move on to the afterlife. This is First Baptist on Bill.
That looks familiar.
Yeah.
I think this is the oldest black congregation in Memphis. I think it is. That's
I like
a
that.
building that he passed often.
Probably a lot, yeah.
Because he used to go and bust it down on Bill Street a lot. This is him looking in on his childhood self. And you can
A lot of
see
emotion in that.
the guitar on the wall, the piano, and he's got the harmonica. Which are all his primary instruments. From there, where he's able to heal his inner child, he goes up the steps to the upper room, which is colloquialism for heaven. And he's got his hat.
I'll have to edit a little video together.
It's very interesting. I'm glad we ended up coming in here.
All right, man.
All right, buddy.
Appreciate the walk through. Have a blessed day.
All right, you
Yeah,
too. Y'all be careful.
Yes, sir.
Am I still recording? I said, what were we doing before we walked in there?
Nothing.
Before we spent 2 hours in there?
I don't know. I don't regret it. I'm glad I stayed.
That's like one of the best things you'll probably get
I was
here.
about to say,
You couldn't spend money and get
that was like genuinely like great.